So, what do y'all think is the concept of? We always hear dating down, right? And I'm not going to date down. What do y'all consider as dating down for y'all?
Well, for me, and I'm going to say this because I had to switch my dating scenery up because when I say dating down, and I hope no one takes offense to this, okay, a lot of guys from the urban community are still living their street life. And unfortunately, you could be walking down the street, going to the deli, etc., and there are going to be people that stop you, right? And when I say dating down, I don't want to date a drug dealer. Like, I'm not a ride or like I can't ride or die for you. Like, I can't be a ride or die dummy.
You know that's the first time we heard that on this show. That I don't want to date a drug dealer. That's the first time.
I'm not saying this to be mean because I have. And I went through an experience, and you have to sometimes go through an experience to actually learn from it. And I realized that wasn't the lifestyle for me. Yeah. It looked fun, it looked exciting, yes, ride or die. But in reality,
you got questions.
I realized, that's me dating down. Because that's not me. That's not like you can't want so much for yourself in life and accomplish so much. And I feel like dating somebody who just want to be a drug dealer for the rest of their life, they legalized weed in New York. And I watched a lot of guys who were local drug dealers in the urban community let other people come and get their license. And now they're selling the same drugs you were selling that you went to jail for. And you could have actually had a business. Now, I would have respected you more if you would have turned your situation to a business. But you're still doing the same thing you was already doing. So to me, that's me dating down. Dating a drug dealer who's doing the same thing that he was doing 10 years prior or 5 years prior. What else can you do for your life? You didn't raise that money yet. You didn't get a house or a car. You don't have other workers for you on the corner, nothing. Like, so that's what I mean. Dating down. Like, you didn't level up yet.
Yeah.
Got you.
Yeah.
That's just my experience. Sorry.
For me, dating down, I will have to say if your morals and values don't align with mine. So if you don't believe in God, that's a red flag for me. If you don't come, in a good family background, that's a red flag for me. Like, that's me, like, not dating down. Like, that's what I would just have to say. Like,
I forgot. And fighting demons. That's dating down. I don't want a guy that's fighting demons. It's not my job to get the demons out of you. A lot of guys go through traumatic things, and they expect the female they're dating to take on that trauma. And I'm not the girl that's here to help you fight your demons either. I feel like that's something your therapist is supposed to help you with. Right. And then you come to me after you got the help. And then now we could be happily ever after. But I do not like the demon fighting guys.
Come here. Well, I wanted to ask you, you said if you don't come from a good family background, you can't choose your family. You know what I mean? So it's like you can still emerge out of that and be a stand-up man. So
you can.
How do you navigate with that?
You can. I agree. But I just feel like when you're dating, and I feel like for women, when they date, they don't do the research. Like, they think like, okay, so I'm dating this guy. Like, for instance, what Shaq just mentioned about guys being drug dealers and stuff like that. I feel like they don't do the research. They don't really sit and think about, like, who is this guy? They don't take the time. They just rush. They see the money, or they see the whatever it is that attracts them to this particular guy. Right. They see the cars and stuff, and they don't take, consideration of his family background. I understand what you're saying, but for me, if, like, I'm engaged, and I'm not going to say my fiance came from a 100% perfect family background. I'm not going to say that. But, and however, him as a man and how he was brought up, I can honestly say, like, he learned from his situations and stuff like that. Right. And, you learn from things, and you try to get onto the right path. So. Right.
Okay. Let me go with Shay. Shay, have you ever dated down? Or what do you consider dating down?
That's a loaded question. Absolutely, I have. Absolutely. And I think dating down for me is anything that takes me down, like taking on something that doesn't take me higher, but takes me lower in whatever capacity that is. If you using me financially, if you draining me emotionally, if you, just not stepping up and I got to step in on your behalf, all of that to me is dating down. So I have done it before, but I think that's what makes me such a great dating coach, because I can pull from my previous experiences and say, yeah, I did that.
Right.
I learned from this. You know, I tried that. You might not want to go that way, you know, so I own it.
And the same light of, you know, dating down, sometimes we outgrow our partners.
Oh, yeah.
How do you handle that situation? If
you're going to be constantly growing, and you're going to constantly becoming something else, something different. Yeah, so that can definitely happen. I'm definitely a proponent of therapy and, you know, mental health. And so you talked about demons. Like I'm huge on, we all have trauma. We've all experienced something in our childhood or through life, relationships. Life is going to hit you. Nobody's walking around here saying, I have no issues, no trauma. Nobody's like that. We all have our stuff. Right. So I don't think you can beat somebody up, but you can say you need to hold yourself accountable. You need to go get the help. You need to go get healing, right? So if you're not willing to do that, and I have been in situations where a person was just like, I'm not going to go to therapy. Okay, well then we're done here, because there's you're not willing to work on yourself. I can't take that in. And to your point, men do date women expecting us to heal them. Yeah. Because we are healers.
I was just about to say
we are nurturers.
Natural.
We're incubators. We're natural. This is what we do. But I'm not healing you, sir. I'm not a hospital.
Not my different department, not the demon department. Like, you want me to help you get your LLCs or something?
Right. We can do that. We can do that. But I'm not healing your past traumas and your. I'm not doing that.
Sometimes I feel like people hold on to their childhood trauma, and I do feel at some point, because our parents went through childhood trauma too, and then our grandparents went through it. At some point, like, we have to become adults and move forward instead of continuously blaming our parents.
And they make excuses, not to cut you off, but men sometimes, not to be a man basher, I'm just saying, like, some men, they'll hold on. Okay, you know, but men, they do hold on to childhood traumas, and then they use that to blame, like, oh, well, I went through this as a child, and you know what I mean? Like, they use it to blame and to use it as a cope mechanism or excuses for the things that they do to women, or the things that because they lost a job, or because they're drug dealers. They do that just as an excuse, I feel like. So
I think, honestly, you can get that from both men and women. Yes, I agree. I think because it could be something traumatic that happened, we're going to relive it over and over again, and it may present itself, manifest in a way in our lives, in our relationships. I do not think that it is our job to heal, but I do believe it's our job to support our partner in their healing journey. So if so if someone says that, you know, I want to go through therapy, or even if they don't, you being their partner is to recognize that and support them and say, look, that's what you need. I support you. And that's what I think you have to do. And you asked the question of, you know, people evolve and they grow out of each other. I think it's important to check in, to have check-ins.
That's good.
And you have to understand, as Shay said, that you're constantly growing. The person who you were 5 years ago is not going to be the person you are today, hopefully.
Right.
Hopefully, so you go in with that expectation,
for better or for worse,
right? That you are continuing to grow, and that you are growing together, but you're checking in. And life happens. Sometimes you grow, and it may end up being, you know, two roads, different roads that you take. But it's okay for it to be roads that you take together, because you're still an individual, and you have to respect the individuality. But you have to be mature enough to come together and to have a true partnership, because there are things that I like to do, and my partner knows that, and he's very supportive. There are things that he loves to do, and I want that, because I want to see the joy in him, and he wants to see the joy in me. So, you know, I think it's important for us to support each other, and we all have trauma, and we all have to recognize that, and we all will use it as an excuse. But we have to hold each other accountable when it happens. But we have to be supportive of each other in our healing journey.
Yeah, while we're on the growing topic, I remember Eli used to say this, when you get married, to have like a 3-year contract, if y'all want to renew it after the 3 years. Like, would that be something y'all be interested in? Because, you know, sometimes you go apart. So every 3 years or every 5 years, whatever, check in, like, oh, do we still want to do this?
I thought about this. That's a great... I had thought about this because when we think of, when you get a marriage license, every other license has the expiration date. And obviously, marriages ain't lasting like how they used to, you know.
Right.
So my thing was, should we put, expiration date on the license, and after the 3 years, if you guys still want to continue this, I mean, people renew their vows is almost the same concept, whatever. So after 3 years, whatever the contract is, hey, we have this conversation. You sit down with a therapist or whoever, whatever it is, your church, talk about if y'all want to continue this route. And I think it will be a lot easier than people going through the divorce process and all this, being married, but technically didn't get the divorce, or they just, separated or whatever the case is. So that was a concept I had. Obviously, it's not a popular concept, but, it's just something to think about.
But it's not the same difference. It's just a different name now.
What is that?
Instead of saying divorce, we just changed the title, but it's the same situation.
No, it would save you from going through that process.
So you just renew or not. You renew or not renew is what he's saying. So instead of divorce, you have to renew. Do you want to renew, or you want to not renew?
I think when you get into a relationship, but when you say, okay, this is someone that I want to embark on this journey with, I think it's a good idea to start with therapy, because you have this person who is objective, who is going to help you to mediate conversations, to help you to see things that you may not be able to see with your partner because you're so emotionally invested. Mm-hmm. So I think it's important to say, okay, you know what? We have our date nights. We take trips together. Let's have a therapist, right? We're it's a part of our maintenance for our relationship.
Definitely.
And you're checking in. When I talk about check-ins, you're checking in. You can say, we're going to check in once a week. It can be 30 minutes. How you doing? How are things? Is there something I can help you with? Do you need my support? So you should be aware, if you are transparent with each other, what's happening. That way it's not a surprise 3 years when the term is over with, and say, well, you know what, this is the problem that I have. But you guys have been talking, because remember I said earlier, communication is essential. Right. You could have all those things. He looks good on paper. She looks good on paper. Yeah. But it's having those check-ins, right? That is critical in a relationship, and you can decide how you want to do that, because you could have that term and people will wait until the very end to say, you know what, this is not working. Right. Versus, well, why didn't I know we were going along?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't. So the 3-year expiration, and when you look at marriage, some of the times that may be one of the times that's kind of like you're dipping down low. And when you're dipping down low, do you want to just exit out? When people have an exit out clause, sometimes it's hard to put that grit in, just like anything, just like going to college, right? You're going in and you're taking these exams and it's all this work. Say, oh, well, you know what, let me come out. You'll never get that prize if you think like that.
You're less likely to put in the work.
Right, you have to put it.
You can check out.
Everyone that has been successfully married for years will say, this is real work. Yes. And so if you have an opt-out clause to real work, then you will never be successful. Now, when I'm going back to success again from the beginning, and how do we define success? And I talked about being introspective, knowing yourself, knowing how to communicate. We're kind of circling right back to that, to therapy and understanding. And when you asked, how do you define what's a good family, and really understanding what's a good family for you. Some people can't even recognize that their situation wasn't optimal and it wasn't conducive for growth, for a family, for children, and they're still replicating what they learned growing up. And that's harmful for our community. It's very harmful. So I think, again, going back to that emotional intelligence, and let me just say, I also it is important for me, for my spouse to make money. I'm not gonna, you know what I mean? I put in that grit. I worked hard. It wasn't easy for me to get my credentials. It wasn't easy. It meant staying up at 3 a.m. till 3 a.m, waking up at 6 a.m. to go to class. It wasn't easy. So I expect that level of grit in return. And going to this, seeing my father as a role model for me has made it very, very difficult for me, for dating. And when I was married, he didn't have my mother's a registered nurse, retired registered nurse, and my dad was an auto mechanic. And he always said to my mother, I'm going to always make more money than you. And so he had the ambition that Elle was talking about. So he opened up his own business and he provided for us. My mother didn't work. She stayed home with us. Wow. And so it's very hard for me when I meet someone, or I have 2 daughters, and this is why I came on the show as being a representative to, like, kind of for younger girls too, like what we should be thinking about. Like, don't go to sleep at 10 o'clock and then say, stuff is not good for me. I got to see that grit. I got to see that work. I got to see that ambition. I got to see that drive. I got to see. You can't sit and watch a whole series of Netflix and then tell me like things are hard. I need that grit. And I tell they have to have that hustle to work hard.
Yeah.
Shay, let me ask you this question. How important, when you're matching men, how much do they emphasize a woman's earning potential, or do they prioritize other things?
Men never ask me about how much she makes. I have millionaire clients, and I could match them with a waitress. They would not care. It is a thing that women ask for more than men do. Right. But I think it's because we have a security need that they don't have. Like we have what's going to be our living standard that men don't have? And also men say, well, it don't matter how much she make because I can't tap into her money. She's not going to give me her money. So I have to, I don't care how much she makes. That's what they say to me. They're like, women care how much a man makes. Men never tell me that.
Yeah. I think, the only reason I asked it because sometimes I think when women are looking for significant others, they often look for things that they want in a man, and then they expect that man to want those same things. So if they want a man that's a high earner, why doesn't a man want me? I am a high earner, because men tend to value other things in women besides their money. So I think it's and go back to, Ju made a point about growth, and then obviously Al followed up with it. I think we don't have enough conversations about growth and our partners and stuff. We never talk about it, and that's a real thing. And I think we need to have more conversations surrounding growth and what that looks like in your partner and how to adapt to that change, because everybody's going to change, like, you know what I mean? So
I do want to add one thing. So I go to different like professional conferences, medical conferences, attorney conferences, dental conferences where these men are. And when I present, like I have a whole lookbook of my clients, and they're all beautiful and successful, and I show them, and they're like, ooh, it's not that they don't want a successful woman. And I don't want to be offensive when I say this. I feel like they don't know where to get them. So they're just like, I'm going to take low-hanging fruit and date Keisha because she here. Does that make sense? I hope it's not offensive. But what I'm saying is they don't put forth the effort to go get that type of woman, go where she is. It's just like, well, I'm in the club. Keisha came up to me, so let's go with that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I do. I hear what you're saying. I think sometimes men feel like they would rather pick a woman that's in that element because they would have more time to give them their attention. So I don't think it's so much, she may be busy in her world and climbing the successful ladder where his needs are not being met, because we're not looking for your finances. We want words of affirmation. We want, acts of service, you being there. And like, it goes into like, I know you guys are like, we're not here being your therapist. I don't think you should, be anybody's therapist, but we do. That nurturing side of you, we want from women. You know what I'm saying? We want to feel that you care. That's a support that Elle spoke about. Like, we want, like, you may not have to worry about fixing my past, but your words will be willing to fix my future, because you're bringing life into me when I hear you speak. So it motivates me in a different way. So sometimes,
but successful women can be nurturing too.
Absolutely.
I think
it has a bad rap.
I think that's what men think. They have the thought that she make money, she's gonna be hard, and she's not gonna be soft, and she's not gonna be nurturing. But those are two different things.
That's not glad you said that.
Yeah.
Because I was going to say that women can be successful. I think we are great multitaskers.
Absolutely.
So let's just say that. So I think that, when you're with your partner, and I do really appreciate you saying the words of affirmation and acts of services, which are one of the 2 of the 5 love languages.
Shout out to Wolf.
I do get that sense that is what men want, but women also have a love language as well.
Absolutely.
And even though a woman may be successful, she still wants words of affirmation, not for somebody on the street, but from her man, her partner, or whomever she's with. So I do think, and I appreciate you saying that, that you also need that. Women need it as well. And if we both have that grit, to Donna's point, and we're both moving along that journey, we're going to have to learn how, when we get home, we got to let that go.
You do.
Because I can tell you, in
That's
my
important.
world,
Yep.
you know, there's a lot of control that I maintain.
Mhm.
There's a team. But when I get home, I want to give that up.
Yep.
And when I, you know, and I'm sure, Shay, you've heard that women say
I hear it all the time.
they want the security that you talked about. And that doesn't have to just be financial, but they want the security. They want to be able to not be in control all the time. And, you know, want to be feminine and want to be nurturers and to take care. I think that's the beauty of owning our femininity, of owning our sexuality, is to express ourselves. That's going to help our partners.
Yep. A client said this to me, and I love it. She said, when I get home, I want to be able to take my cape off, hang it up, take my shoes off, and you come massage my feet. Like, I don't want to be Superwoman at home.
Right.
They don't. They want, I know I have to do this at work, but when I get home, it's on you, babe. What's the decision? Let's do it. Like, that's what women want. And so I think sometimes successful women get a bad rap. Like, oh, she going to be hard. We're going to be bumping heads. No, not necessarily.
So let me tell you what I did before I came here, and Donna was there. I made dinner for the family before I left because I just wanted to make sure that they had dinner. And it can happen, it can be done, but that was me being who I am, being a nurturer, making sure that everybody is taken care of. And there are women who do that, who are successful, you know, but again, success means so many different things. But I know that my family is going to be taken care of while I'm here. Because we eat at 7:00. You know,
I appreciate you saying that. I know where Drew's gonna go.
I'm gonna leave it alone. I'm gonna leave it alone.
We know we have had women who will use that as an excuse not to do those things for their family, or they'll be like, "Well, you was home. You was home. Why ain't you do? I was working all day." Like, you know what I'm saying? So we do have. You know, women that will make those excuses to not do the things that they would do out of, you know, you did out of love, you just wanted to feed your family. Someone will look, well, I'm not your slave, or this, that, and the third. And to a point Donna made, which is, you know, I think is perfect, but I think it can be hypocritical because women will speak about their fathers and then say, I need a man that was like my father. But then when in return, when men say, well, you know, I had a mother that was, you're a mother's boy. You know, there's that, you know, that double standard there. You know what I'm saying? So
I'm not your mother. You got mommy issues.
No, it is a double standard. You know, I agree with that. It's very true. Because I'm a daddy's girl, and listen, my daddy holds it down to this day. Like, he holds it all the way down. And it's really hard when you have a good father, because you do kind of, it's a measuring stick. Like, wait a minute, my daddy would. Are you gonna? It is a measuring stick. When we don't want the same measuring stick.
You don't want that same measuring stick. I got a great mom. She used to.
So I do want to get to this because obviously in today's society we live in a different. You know, it's not as traditional as it used to be. You know, women are working now. Some women are out earning their husbands or their significant others. So how do two successful people in a relationship manage the finances? Because we hear the successful women, but then they really do want to be a stay-at-home mom and take care of the kids. But with those women that do want to work, you know, they're career driven. How do you navigate the finances? And I'm not trying to go with the 50-50 aspect. I know y'all probably think I'm leading that, but you know, what are some things that you feel like, you know what, my earnings can help to the family? Like, what do you think? How do you think that works?
I heard a woman say, and I loved it. She was like, I don't want to work to put food on the table. I want to work to put whole foods on the table. You know what I mean? So I would love if my salary was kind of like something a little extra. I don't mind working.
Because not to cut you off, but I think that is one of the reasons why men don't tend to care about a woman's, you know, success when it comes to earning potential, because it's like, okay, well, it doesn't contribute towards, you know, the family. Like, you know, because a woman, how many times we heard, now all women, we hear women, a man's money is my money and my money is my money. So a man is looking at it, well, you know, I don't really care for her money because it has nothing to do with me or the family. So that's why I wanted to ask, you know, what are some ways that successful women can contribute to the family with their income?
Well, I know your question's on income, but I think that we have to get back to basics, meaning that we all have strengths that we each bring to a relationship. True. And that's what you have to play up to. You said that more relationships are not traditional, meaning you have you have a family where both have careers,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to figure out, like for me, I love to cook. It's how I relax.
Right.
Okay.
Well, my partner, he doesn't mind washing the clothes. I hate doing that.
Mm,
So,
okay.
that works.
Right.
And that's just a simple example, but the point is you have to play up to your strengths, and you can't get bogged down on assigned roles.
Gender
Mhm.
roles.
And I didn't
Yeah.
want to say gender.
Okay.
Mhm.
Just to be said, but assigned roles that people have that could be based on gender, culture,
Societal
whatever.
standards.
Societal
Yeah.
standards,
Mhm.
right? Thank you. So not to get bogged down in the assigned roles, because that's where you're really going to have the arguments, because you're going to be like, well, you're supposed to do this as a woman, you're supposed to do that as a man. And so as a successful woman, I think that you have to get past this, well, I make more, and that's because I make more, you should be doing X. And I think, honestly, the fair way to do it is proportion to income.
Okay.
I don't
That
think
makes sense. I mean, obviously, yeah.
it does, right? If you make more,
Wait, does
and-
that go for if the woman is making more than
That's
the
what I
man?
said. If
Oh,
you
okay,
are, because
all
I'm
right,
gonna
just making
speak from a
sure.
woman's
Right.
perspective.
Yeah,
okay.
If you are a woman and you make more, you, out of fairness, you cannot. And this person, let's say you make 100,000, they make 50,000. They can't pay 50-50. And but you have to be comfortable with it. To me, it has to be proportionate to income, and you can't just look at the finances. You can't just say, well, I contribute this and you only contribute that. Well, what else do you do for each other?
Right.
Because it's those
important.
other things that count,
Add in.
and it's
Definitely.
those other things that are going to sustain you. Because we could come up with a lot of women who are multimillionaires, billionaires, and their spouses or partners may not make as much, and they have a successful relationship. And I'm sure they're not saying, well, I'm a millionaire and I can afford this house and I pay this much and you got to pay half. That's unrealistic.
It's unrealistic, very much.
It's
so.
very much so unrealistic. But I don't know, because I don't know the evidence, but I don't know if women are receptive to that. Because they have this.
I mean, they was killing Gabrielle and D-Wade when Gabby said that.
It's one of those things that
it's a financial part that everybody keep talking about.
Right.
Like, because when they say 50-50, they're talking about the money. They're not talking about, I'm going to take the kids to school. We're switching
Right, that's
everything.
true.
There's so
50-50.
much more
When
to
they
it.
say 50-50,
That's
they're
true.
literally only talking about money.
Yeah.
That's the problem. If you're swapping out with me with other things, like say I would have took the kids to school, right? So say I make more, going back to the whole 50,000, 100K thing. We can split the bills. If I made 50K or you made 50K or I made 100 and you made 100, right? You're putting up 25 and I'm still putting up 25. That's just for our bills, right? We still have our other money to store from the side. We still can split 50-50 on bills, even if I make more or you make more.
Yeah. I have clients, let me give an example. I have a client, she makes $5 million a year. And I told her from the gate.
Shout out to her.
Shout out to her. She's one of my favorite clients, by the way.
But
I'm sure.
I just matched her with I matched her with a guy who's an attorney. He don't make nearly as much as she make, but he definitely makes six figures.
Right.
And she didn't care. She was just like, Shay, I just don't want him to, when he pull up to my mansion, when he pull up and see my cars in the yard, I don't want him to be intimidated. That's what's important to me. This is how I live. I don't want to dumb it down. I don't want to water it down. This is me. If you can accept me, I can accept you. And we can ride off in the sunset. That was her thought. Some women are not like that. They're like, nope, you got to come. So everybody's different. But she's very logical and she understands. I'm not going to be able to fire her.
Would you say that's a majority though?
It's not the majority. But again, that's my job to say, here's what's out here. Okay. This is what we're working with. I can get you this. I don't know about that.
I heard you say earlier that issue they have is like I want to go on vacation like every other month or whatever,
they do.
And they partner can't. But if you could afford to pay for your partner to go with you, why wouldn't you want to do that?
So that's the thing. So yes, they can afford to do it. Absolutely.
Right.
Like they'll drop 30,000 at the mall just on GP. It's
Exactly.
like ridiculous.
Right.
It's like I'm like, oh girl, stop. So when I'm with them, I'm like, so if you could do this, you could do this. And these are the conversations. This is why I said it's my job to level set. It's my job to make unrealistic expectations realistic.
Are
those conversations uncomfortable?
They're very uncomfortable. But I think so for me, you have to
You trying to
trust
tell me I got to settle?
And then so we get into this conversation. Is that settling though? Is it settling though? If he's doing all these other things like you talked about, he's supporting you in this way emotionally. Yes. So is it settling? Because what you're doing right now, you by yourself. So you can go with this or you can go with. So this is how I break it down. Exactly. You have to trust me. You have to know that I'm not belittling you. I want you to find love. I'm here to help you find love. I'm only successful if I find love for you. So I definitely want you to find love. Yeah. But if you think I'm gonna be able to find you a Dwayne Wade, it's not gonna happen. Like, let's just keep it real. It's not gonna happen. That's a 1 in a million. You know what I'm saying? It's not gonna happen.
Right. And he's gonna have the bulk of options. You know what I mean?
That's what men with money have more options. Let me say that. Women gonna hate me for it, but it's the truth. Because, like I said, they can date younger. We don't like dating too young. It's like, ew, that's gross. Like, but they don't have that. They'll date younger. They have the spectrum that they can choose from. And the more money they get, the more choices they have. And they can be, I want a premium. I want a model. I want to, I want other races. Let's go there.
And the higher that money is, the more they're willing to compromise as well.
Absolutely. So it's not the same. We're not talking apples and oranges. Yeah, right. And then two, a lot of times if women don't have children, so a lot of my clients are late 30s, your clock is ticking. You want children. So then I'm like, freeze your eggs. Let's slow this down. So this is where I come in as a coach to say, this is what you need to do. I'm going to do my part. Can you do your part? Definitely. Can you go freeze your egg? You can afford a surrogate. So push come to shove. So this is where I have these conversations to make it realistic. Because if you think I'm going to go find somebody in 2 months, y'all going to get married, he's going to get you pregnant, it's just not going to happen. You see what I'm saying? So it's my job to say, here's what's going to happen. Right. This is how it's going to work. Right.
So what is the age range for people that normally hire your services?
So usually, because my services are expensive, I would say on average, I have a package that's $10,000, but most people pay $25,000. Okay. So that person's usually late 30s, who can afford that, to be honest with you, mid 30s, or, if I have a 31-year-old attorney, she can afford it, so it's somebody who can afford that, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.